Tristan Bailey was a vibrant and beautiful young woman. She had goals and dreams of pursuing journalism. She loved her family, friends, cousins, and all those who knew her. Although her life was lived for only a short time, the impact she had on our family and community is immeasurable. We miss her, and we are grieving her passing. Those are the words posted on the Tristan Bailey Memorial page on Facebook, a page dedicated to the memory of a 13-year-old girl who was brutally murdered in her neighborhood.
We went to a very extensive search, including our criminal investigation division, and also putting out everything we could think of. We actually have arrested a suspect by the name of Aiden Fucci.
The suspect accused of this vicious attack is Tristan's classmate and neighbor, who was 14 at the time.
Murder committed with a depraved mind, but without premeditation. That is murder in the second degree.
Tonight, we will take a look at the evidence in the case, the surveillance videos, and try to figure out what happened. Then, we will bring in our experts to try to understand why. Welcome back to Closing Arguments. This is a tough case. We are talking about a 13-year-old girl, just 13 years old, living a very vibrant life. There she is, Tristan Bailey. Every picture you see, she is just so alive. One of those kids that just goes out there and does it, you know, lives life. And that life was taken in such a brutal manner. And investigators say it's not some old pedophile. No, it's a 14-year-old, a neighbor, a classmate. There he is. Aiden Fucci is his name. I want you to take a listen to what the St. John's police had to say about this case so you get some idea of what we're talking about here.
Yesterday at 10 hours or 10 o'clock in the morning, we received a call at our 911 communications center from Tristan Bailey's family reporting Tristyn missing. We immediately went to work at the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office along with the community, and we verified that the last time Tristyn had been seen was last night or on Saturday night, early Sunday morning, just after midnight by her family members. Again, we went to a very extensive search, including our criminal investigation division, and also putting out everything we could think of to our media, putting out pictures of Tristyn, putting out anything we could think of. And again, that community really stepped up and got involved with us here at the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. At about 6 p.m. last night, one of our residents actually, based on the information we were putting out, was actually out looking around his area where he lives and actually discovered what has now been verified as Tristan Bailey's body in a wooded area.
Tristyn.
I apologize. Thank you for correcting me. Tristan Bailey, and I do apologize. Tristan Bailey's body that was actually located by a person in the neighborhood, a citizen in the neighborhood, and actually called 911, called the sheriff's office. We went out there and actually processed the body and recovered the body. Since then, we actually have arrested a suspect by the name of Aiden Fucci.
Can you give us the cause of death?
At this time, we're not giving the cause of death, but I will actually let Director Cole, if you want to add to that at all, let you add to it.
No, there's nothing to add at this point. The medical examiner is still conducting their investigation, and once that's concluded, we'll share that with the family, and then we'll decide on whether to share it with the media.
And that has happened. We've got the medical examiner's report, so let me read that to you. This is, again, a 13-year-old girl. The suspect, a 14-year-old. Cause of death, multiple stab wounds. Manner of death, homicide. 114 sharp force injuries over the body. Based on the nature of the injuries, it appears the suspect was behind her. Handwritten word karma on the left ankle and a smiley face drawn on the right ankle. Whoever took her life, I mean, we are talking about evil here. That's what this is. Whoever took her life. They have a suspect, presumed innocent, but, you know, let's take a look at the evidence tonight. Let's find out more. Let me bring in a special guest joining us in Jacksonville, Florida from WJXT. News 4 reporter Vic Micolucci joins us. WJXT doing an unbelievable job covering the story from the beginning. Vic, thanks again for your time tonight. I know you have a full day and then you're doing this for us tonight. I want to start and take a look at the neighborhood and what you can tell us about the neighborhood. We've got a map here where the suspect, 14-year-old Aiden Fucci, lived with his family. What can you tell us about the neighborhood, the subdivision where they lived?
All right, Vinny. So first of all, I want to start off. This is still such a difficult case to even talk about for us as a member of this community, as a reporter here, as someone who knows a lot of the people involved in this case now. It's heartbreaking. It is so heartbreaking, and really you led with those details, so beyond disturbing. Let's get to this neighborhood. So this is in the suburban area of Jacksonville. St. Johns County is like the fastest growing county in the state of Florida. It's where people move when they want their kids to be in a good neighborhood, to have safe streets, to go to school and to get a good education and not be fearful for their safety when they go to school. That's why you move to St. Johns County. That's what we hear from parents time and time again. And this is just outside of Jacksonville. Jacksonville oftentimes has more problems with its public schools, with the violence, with the crime. So when we first found out about a missing teenager down in that neighborhood, it didn't come to our mind that this was going to be a murder case, let alone such a gruesome, horrific, horrible homicide. This is a place where people go for walks. They walk their dogs. They go on bicycles. There's parks. There's a food truck Friday, all kinds of things. And the school's right around the corner. A nice place, certainly not a neighborhood where anybody would have security concerns.
Now, and then when we found out Aiden Fucci is the suspect in all of this, he's 14, she's 13. Her home is also in that same neighborhood, correct?
Yep, just a couple blocks away.
So the story that investigators have put together here, Tristan Bailey's in the same community. This is happening, after midnight, all of this. What are they saying is happening? How does Tristan Bailey, where she is, about down the road from Aiden Fucci, how is it that they end up in the same place, according to investigators that night?
Yeah, so we're still working on some of the details here, Vinny. Some of the case details are still, closed shut right now, but we know that Tristan Bailey was out with her family, very tight-knit family, close family. They call themselves the Bailey Seven. They did everything together. She had a mom, a dad. She was one of 5 siblings. So they went out, they got home, they got to their house right before midnight. She goes to her room. She's supposed to be in bed. Well, something happens. She goes out, she meets up with some friends. Apparently, according to investigators, Aiden Fucci is there. And then we have that surveillance video evidence from some of the homes in the neighborhoods where we see the two of them walking around 1:15 in the morning. So they're walking together. We believe that that's the two of them. Here's your video right there.
Right.
00:15. So around 1:15 in the morning, they're walking. Looks like a casual stroll, right? It's a nice night in May.
Let me ask you,
the weather
Vic,
is good.
As we're watching this video, where exactly is this video? Is this near his house, near her house, or do we know?
This is one of the streets in between. It's not from either of their homes, as far as I know. So this is just, detectives are doing their detective work. They go around there, they look for anybody with cameras, they knock on that door, they say, hey, do you have any footage? It took a little bit of time to find this. So this is some surveillance video from a house. It looks like you can see the driveway, the 2 cars right in there. And then there they are across the street on the sidewalk, really casually walking side by side, Vinny.
Then there's a second video, and this one we only see one person, and it's, what is it, about 1:52 a.m. We're looking at it now.
Yeah, that's about a half hour later. And you can see one person running. Detectives tell us that that's Aiden Fucci, 14 years old at the time. Unfortunately, this is where we see that there's no sign of Tristan Bailey. You'll notice something if we play that video again. We've got it on loop here. You're going to notice he's got something in his hands. Now, investigators tell us that those are his white tennis shoes. Those are going to come out a little later in the timeline as we continue to follow this case.
Okay, we got him running. Now, there's another video of Aiden Fucci arriving home, and that looks like it's sometime later, almost an hour and a half later, because it's saying 3:31 at this point.
Yeah, so
looks
90,
like
100 minutes
something
later. Yeah, and we think that those are the shoes. Those are the shoes, which again, are going to be a big piece of evidence in this case when and if it goes to trial. And there he goes. He's at his house, kind of casually walking in. There's some sort of key code. He goes in the house. You know, he's got his hoodie on, got those shoes. You see the Nikes right there. And it doesn't look like anything major happened. Just, you know, a 14-year-old boy coming back, but he's got his shoes in his hand. And that's a little different. Why would you be
different?
barefoot?
But they can really,
Yeah.
through this video, you can put together somewhat of a timeline outlining when all of this could have happened. Tell me about has a murder weapon been recovered in this case? Have they said anything about that?
Yes, and I've got to tell you, I actually was physically there when they recovered that murder weapon. I happened to be there. I was in the neighborhood. I noticed some commotion in the woods. My photographer and I, we actually walked through the woods, got back, you know, trudging through the forest, and then we found this opening, this retention pond, this lake, and you had the dive team there, and there was a considerable amount of commotion, and we could hear them yelling. We could hear the dive team yelling, and then the detectives on the shore all scramble, and they pull something up from that pond, and they put it in a case. They quickly whisk it away. Police escorted. That's the big piece of evidence. We believe now that is the knife used to, you know, sadly and brutally murder Tristan Bailey.
So I want to bring it back now to Tristan's family. You started by telling us about the community, the folks. How are they holding up through this? I can't imagine what this has been like for them.
You know, I get chills every time I talk to them. I get chills every time I think about this case. And, you know, we're getting national and international attention for this story, but I always have to remind whoever it is that this is a real family that is dealing with the worst imaginable pain. Think about it. Their youngest daughter, their youngest child, killed in such a horrific way. They call themselves the Bailey Seven. They have stayed so strong. They do all kinds of community outreach. They do prayer services. They do vigils. I went to her memorial service, her celebration of life, and you know, you would never expect the family to go on stage and talk about this young woman after such a horrific tragedy, yet they did. And they continue to tell me time and time again, we want to make this about Tristyn. They don't like to even mention the name of the suspect, of the defendant in this case. They say it's about showing Tristyn's love, her light. She was such a bright light, taken away, ripped away from this earth, but we're going to carry on her legacy. So really, they are strong, they are brave, they are generous, they are kind. I don't have a bad thing to say about this family. They've been incredible throughout an unimaginably horrific time.
Yeah, and here at Court TV, I mean, we cover trials, and that, you know, that becomes tough for families if they're not prepared for it. But from what you're telling me, they've got each other, they've got that strength. I think they'll be able to make it through this process, but it's not going to be easy. Vic Micolucci, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll speak with us again as this trial looms closer and closer. Thank you one more time from News 4 WJXT down in Jacksonville. Check out all their stuff online if you're not in the market. They have covered this case in depth from beginning to where we are now. Thanks again, Vic.
Thank you, Vinny.
All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to bring in our investigators, and Vic laid it out, some of the evidence in this case. How easy will this be to prove? How about a murder weapon that's in a retention pond? What can you get from that? So much to talk about. We'll be right back.
The arrest report, Mr. Snowbird, do you have any comments on probable cause?
No, sir.
Okay. I do find that there is probable cause to believe that the offense occurred. And at this time, I'm going to order that Mr. Fucci be detained by the Department of Juvenile Justice.
Aiden Fucci detained, but he's going to be charged as an adult. 14 years old, charged with the murder of Tristan Bailey, 13-year-old neighbor, friend, classmate. It's incredibly tragic. I mean, it was a brutal murder. 114 stab wounds. Here's a part of the incident report. The defendants, some admissions that he allegedly made, Aiden Fucci. The defendant's story changed several times, but ultimately made several admissions. Admitted to being with the victim. Admitted to walking north along North Durban Parkway, which is significant. There's video. The defendant admitted to engaging in an argument with the victim in which he forcefully pushed the victim to the ground, striking her head. Let me bring in our guests, our investigators joining us tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, former special agent in charge of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Tristan Randall. In Murray, Utah, forensic specialist with cold case solutions and resources, Francine Bardole is with us. And in Washington, D.C., sometimes he's in Utah, retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King. Great to see everyone tonight. Mike, I want to start with you. I know you've done a lot with this on your podcast. Tell me about the defendant changing his story and having this story about pushing the victim. It's 114 stab wounds. This pushing the victim to the ground and striking her head doesn't make sense to me. He's changing his stories. None of this is good for this defendant.
It's going to be really interesting to hear the investigators lay out the timeline of these stories that Fucci delivers. And is he delivering stories that are constantly trying to fix the problems in previous stories? I think this one's going to really boil down to looking at what the fantasy process was going on before all of this happened. We certainly know that there is going to be evidence presented that talks about some of his written manifestos of how he's thinking, what his fantasies are, what he's talking to friends about, and that's going to be a huge piece of this one, I think, Vinny. And then, of course, the fact that he's actually uttering that violence is in part of his thought processes, whether he is truly hearing voices or not. The thing that's going to be really important, in my opinion, beyond the moment that this homicide occurs, is everything that he does to try to avoid detection, getting rid of the weapon, taking the shoes off, taking time to get home, the efforts that went into trying to avoid detection. And I think all of that's going to play out against him. But it really, in my opinion, boils down to the behaviors in this case, because I think they've got the physical evidence. Let's
talk about some of that physical evidence. Francine Bardole, I just spoke with Vic Michelucci, a reporter down there, who was there the moment the alleged murder weapon was recovered from a retention pond. Okay? Recovering the weapon from the retention pond, what sort of evidence will we be able to get? Is there a fear that you may not be able to get all the physical evidence that you need, the forensics from that knife?
No, I don't think there is a fear at all. The knife has been in the water, but there has been enough research done on some of the stuff I work with to include the MVAC and the Bardole method, which I developed, and I'm able to get DNA off of very difficult things. A knife would be perfect. The DNA that might be in the handle or underneath screws or anything of that would be something that would be protected and probably very worth trying to get off of. I've had good experience getting DNA from spent shell casings, excellent experience. I have no doubt I could do it on a knife. You also have some really good evidence on the clothing. Sounds to me when I was listening to Vic that it was from behind. The stabbing was from behind. If that's the case, there's going to be a lot of DNA on the clothing, not just the Tristan's, but also Aiden's clothing. And you can take both of those. That would be the clothing. That could be the shoes. The MVAC would work perfect on that because it gets more DNA. According to FBI, it gets so much more DNA than other methods in swabbing because this is able to suck up the DNA with a solution. So you've got some really good evidence there. And the nail scrapings, the fingernail scrapings, I remember reading on that. And that is really good because how would DNA get down into those fingernails unless there was that she's protecting herself and there was a fight of some sort?
Yeah, some defensive wounds, 114 stab wounds we're talking about. Tristan Randall, I want to show some video to you, some surveillance video. And this is Aiden Fucci's mother, who apparently has the pants. They have cameras inside their home. Your thoughts about this part of the case where you've got mom with the clothes and apparently trying to perhaps clean them up a little bit. There she goes. You think you're going to be able to get the evidence from those pants if they were run through the washing machine, Trebor?
Absolutely. And as she was talking about DNA and some of the things that we're able to do, I get goosebumps because although a lot of the suspects and people who, commit these heinous crimes watch a lot of TV, we're evolving as well. So you can wash the clothes, you can wash the shoes, but we're still going to be able to get that DNA. It's so important, as already been mentioned. I think that they have a ton of physical evidence to be able to tie the two together. There was a bloodshed event, and I think they're going to be able to show that the suspect was a part of that event. You may know that a lot of times when there is a stabbing involved in these cases, many times the suspect will injure themselves as well, because you're dealing with blood and you're talking about over 100 what we refer to as incised wounds. Things get slippery and the knife moves about. So a lot of times they injure themselves. What has happened is there is transfer evidence from that event that has made it all the way back to the home of Fucci, and they're going to be really hard pressed to try and explain that. Again, I think this comes back down to that old adage of, the devil made me do it.
Yeah, unfortunately. Trebor Randall, Francine Bardal, Mike King. We're a little short on time tonight. We have some breaking news at the top of the hour, but we appreciate your very valuable time and insight tonight, and I hope you'll come back because we're going to continue to cover this story as we get closer and closer to the trial. When we come back, we're going to try to get inside the mind of Aiden Fucci. That's next. Plus, in Orlando, Florida, Danielle Redlick married her stepfather, raised a family with him, and then killed him. But was it self-defense or murder? We are in a verdict watch, waiting for the jury to speak.
She had a choice to call 911. She chooses in that moment to let Michael Redlick bleed to death.
Today's limited time offer.
We're having fun in a cop car.
Yep. Tristan.
What's up, guys?
Yep.
Tristan, if you walk out the damn...
When you see this in a month...
It's in a cop car, cuz. She's tripping, dude. And this so right on this...
Oh, my God.
Dude has flashbangs and...
Aiden Fucci, 14 years old, Snapchat video. At that moment, Tristan Bailey had not been found yet. She was missing. He's now been charged with the murder, 114 stab wounds. Here's something else that he posted on Snapchat, a photo. He took a picture of his reflection in the car, in the police car, and under it he wrote, "Hey guys, has anyone seen Tristyn lately?" And under that he wrote, "He needs to be locked up." Let me bring in my guests. Joining us tonight in Los Angeles, California, forensic psychiatrist Dr. Praveen Kambam, and in Alexandria, Virginia, body language expert, New York Times best-selling author of You Can't Lie to Me, Janine Driver. You can also check her out on TikTok at the Body Language Institute. Okay, Dr. Kambam, let me ask you about the Snapchat, the attitude, what he's writing at the moment that she's missing, and we now know 114 stab wounds. We know that he admitted being with her that night. What's your take on his behavior in the back of that police car?
Well, I can't comment on him specifically, but generally in these types of cases, I think the arguments are going to be the prosecution. Hey, he knew what he was doing. This was his mental state around the time of the afterwards, but it's close enough. Defense's side would likely be looking to, was there a mental illness, some sort of mental health issue that was altering its motivations? And so even if he did something in a premeditated manner, was it delusional was it some sort of mental health type of driver for his motivation, and that affected his ability to understand what's happening on.
Hey, I can see that being a big part of it, and we've got a little bit of an audio issue, Doctor, so I think most folks can hear most of what you're saying, and I hope they did because you really laid it out very well. Janine Driver and Dr. Kahnbaum, I want you to take a look and a listen to Aiden Fucci. This is a court appearance on September 3rd, where Aiden Fucci, you kind of hear him talking about demons. Let's watch this, and then I want to hear what you have to say about this.
What's going on? I don't want you demons. I don't want you demons take my soul. You demons want to take my soul away. I don't let you demons steal my soul. I don't know what's going on. Why am I in here? I see no face. What's going on? What we got going on? Why am I here? I just want to talk to my mom and dad. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
Now, the obvious issue that comes up here, is there something terribly wrong with him? Is he malingering? Is he pretending? Janine Driver, your reaction to what we saw there, and that was in sight of everybody, including the judge.
My background's law enforcement, 18 years. I still train law enforcement, cops, clandestine spies. And I've got to tell you, this rocking behavior, Vinny, we see this under massive, massive duress. When we first feel uncomfortable, the first thing that happens is we go into a freeze response. We freeze. Like imagine if you saw a bear or a T-Rex, right? It's the act of running that says you're the prey. So the first response when we have massive stress is first we freeze. Then we run if we can, and last but not least is we fight. When we see this rocking back and forth, it is massive stress and anxiety. He begins in this clip, he begins talking to himself, at least in this clip, looking down left, which is internal dialogue, having this conversation. To me, I'm not a therapist. I'm not an expert in this category to tell if he has some psychological issue happening here. But to me, this is coming across as authentic, not inauthentic. There's nothing here to me that says this is an act, from my expert opinion.
Absolutely. Dr. Kahnbaum, how can someone like you determine whether or not someone is legitimately mentally ill, has a break from reality, versus malingering, pretending to be insane, or pretending or faking mental illness? What are the things that you look for? What are some of the factors that will help someone figure out what's really going on?
Well, first, Vinny, I just want to start it by saying this is his mental state now, and that would be speaking more to competency to stand trial rather than insanity, as you mentioned. That would be at the time of the alleged act.
Absolutely.
But to answer your question, in terms of what we look for, obviously I'm not going to give you all the trade secrets out there, but there are things that are related to our observations. If some of the behaviors fit patterns that we know of exist, sometimes we use testing and see performance on some of the psychological tests if that fits or that potentially points towards malingering. We may get observations from jail. Because it's much harder to, if you are malingering, act 24 hours a day when you're monitored versus just in moments when somebody's looking.
Janine, is there a difference when you're evaluating body language between the actions of, a fully grown adult versus someone who is a teenager, an adolescent, who is in that, awkward stage of life?
Well, so first of all, his brain's not fully developed here, right? So it's still not fully developed. That happens still in his young 20s. However, there are certain things that we look for that are common, whether you're 3 years old, 33, 103. Those are micro expressions. There's 7 of them. And it doesn't matter, Vinny, and you at home, if you're from Africa, if you're from Asia, if you're over here from North America. It's their happiness and sadness and fear and surprise and anger, contempt and disgust. Now, we have more than those in common with people around the world, but these particular 7 have been scientifically proven by Dr. Paul Ekman, later by Dr. David Matsumoto, that we can spot them on the face in certain ways. And our behavior, we have what is called a behavioral fingerprint. We all move in ways that connect to how we make decisions. And the interesting thing here is this rocking back and forth, which is what we do see under massive stress, is connected with a part of our brain, even at this age, which is I'm leaning into the future, bringing the future to now and leaning from the past, what happened in the past to now. In my world, we call it advancing and retreating. Right here is connected to anticipating the consequences.
Janine Driver, Dr. Praveen Kamban, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. We're going to spend some more time on this in the future.